a dark dreamer? It is said that to best enjoy the light, you must first explore the heart and soul of the darkness. We are the artists who create in the shadows, whose dreams are designed to become your reality. I'm Stanley Wiater. Welcome to my world of the dark fantastic. Welcome to the world of dark dreamers. Are you a dark dreamer? Actor John Saxon most visibly is. A versatile and popular star for several decades, Saxon has appeared in virtually every genre, from crime films to westerns. He is most recognized, however, for his work in horror and suspense, having worked with such directors as Mario Bava, Dario Argento, Wes Craven, and of course, Bob Clark. Saxon has starred in such international classics as Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee, the infamous Cannibal Apocalypse, and of course, the Nightmare on Elm Street series. His vivid portrayal of Lieutenant Fuller in Black Christmas is considered among the highlights of his still ongoing career. John recently invited us to his home in the hills above Los Angeles, where he discussed with us his colorful adventures on the dark side of the arts.
The final Nightmare film was
I
created.
played myself, so to speak.
And yeah, could you tell about that? Because I find that personally fascinating when an actor who's a trained actor has to play himself or herself.
Well, obviously it's a version of myself, a cinematic version of myself, that fit to some degree. The scenes that I played with Nancy, who was my daughter in the film, when we first did the first film, she was 23 and graduating from Stanford or something. She was a cute, co-ed and really, and I played her father, and I used to tease her and kid her a little bit. I did a little bit more, and then she got married, and I didn't kid her anymore. So, so it was. We have some kind of a relationship, and we were dealing with the elements of the story, in relating to one another. It wasn't hard. It was easy.
But in terms of your craft as an actor, how much is it a personal belief that you identify with these characters? Because these characters you play in a horror movie do believe in the supernatural. They may be skeptics, but
I've always been the skeptic. I kidded about when doing the last Nightmare that I think I was the only guy who didn't see Freddy. You see. I said, because maybe I'm the kind of character that wouldn't see Freddy. I don't, doesn't believe in Freddy and doesn't see him. So he keeps insisting that it's everybody's emotional problem, this kind of thing, or emotional, whatever you want to call it, conflicts or something.
Or just delusion.
Yeah. That's what I said a little earlier, that I never did. There was no time. Although they put me in one scene where, God knows, I got killed by a skeleton. So God, don't ask me to explain that. Come on. But anyway, yeah.
Okay, and I don't want to go too much into ancient history, but as a person who enjoys the films of Mario Bava, the great Italian horror filmmaker, if you don't mind, if you could tell us a little bit, since you did make a film with Mario Bava, who, like so many directors, in his time, he was not that well regarded, and of course, now that he's passed on, people who are horror aficionados say, wow, the films of Mario Bava, and a lot of them are great. They're very entertaining, very well done.
My experience was very much the same thing. I didn't know who Mario Bava was. I got an offer at a propitious time to go off to Italy, which I wanted to do, in 1962. Okay, and so I did realize while making it that a little bit about him, that he kind of really believed in the world that he was doing about it. He was very superstitious. I don't remember precisely, but I kept remembering, he don't do this, don't do that. And I've heard funny stories about other directors, just as anecdotia. What is the guy's name? I knew him and got to know him in Italy. Brando wrote about him doing Kamada, I'm having a senior moment. I can't remember the director's name. He did Capo. He did Battle of Algiers. Anybody? Gilo Pontecorvo. Gilo Pontecorvo, Brando writes, was on the first day of, the first day of shooting in Colombia. They were in Colombia. He came on wearing an overcoat. It was about 100 degrees. And so Brando said, well, why are you wearing an overcoat? He says, oh, I've got a cold. And so I'm a little worried. And he said, God almighty, it was like 100 and more. And other little strange things were happening. People were wearing odd shoes in scenes, the crew, members of the crew. And finally the story came out that Gilo wore that overcoat on the first film that was a success, and he wore it on every picture the first day that he started out. Members of the crew who were part of his crew wore the same things that they wore on those days. Now, superstition is a great lead-in to supernatural, because you're talking about things that you're talking about ghosts of some kind. Bava did believe in that world. I can't remember precisely, but I remember a lot of things he was going, he was, but he was an interesting man. But I didn't know how good he was in terms of, he was a cinematographer. And later I was asked to talk about him at some conference, and I began to see some footage from other films, and some of the scenes were astonishing. Great visual effects, somewhat like the Swedish, yeah, some of those things were Bergman-esque in ways. So if you believe in that world, whatever you believe, you should express, And if it's horror or the supernatural, well, you can make something click that way.
Tell us a little bit more about working with Bob Clark on Black Christmas. He's so well known as a comedic director, and here he directs this great suspense horror film.
Reading the script, I felt that it was going to be successful. It was just interesting enough. And this is prior to most of the other horror, certainly to Nightmare on Elm Street, but also, I suppose, and there's some feeling that it may have spawned Halloween and Friday the 13th, which I didn't see a lot of, so I can't tell. But I'm willing to believe it may have. I had a good time. I found Bob Clark very, very proficient, very prepared. He had everything all worked out. Every scene was clear. I enjoyed it because I was craftsman myself, and he said, this is what it is. I said, okay, I know exactly what to do. And we did it, and it was smooth. And the film had problems in American distribution because they didn't understand, I don't know, they got screwed up with the title or something. They thought it was going to be perceived as a film, a black film.
Yes, a black exploitation.
A black
film,
exploitation.
Because at that same period of time,
there was the black
history,
exploitation period.
Period, right? It was at the same time.
So, but anyway, he presumed we were friendly. Clark, and I remember he came over and he's saying, I went out there and I talked to those guys and I got them to reissue it with the old campaign, the publicity campaign that was used in Canada and used the official title, and it spawned, I know it spawned films of the same nature, like this Caller in the House or something like that.
He Knows You're Alone, and
that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a whole genre, and it comes from Black Christmas.
Yeah, so it's deserving of more attention now. I mean, there's going to be the DVD I mentioned in the video.
And possibly a sequel.
I hope. I really do. I do, because you ask me what would I do, what I wouldn't do. Yeah, because I see the potential for a role that could be interesting. If I were to be in that thing, I would be that role of that detective 25 years later, 35, who goofed. Who said, well, it's all wrapped up, we found the killer, and everybody leaves and leaves the girl and the guys in the attic. So it's an interesting thing. Mea culpa, this guy comes back and says, I'm sorry, I got it wrong.
I'm just personally curious, because Enter the Dragon is one of my favorite films. I think it's one of the best of that entire genre.
There were years where I did some martial arts as a hobby, where I never thought of wanting to make a film on the subject. I even thought it was a vulgar idea, I swear. I thought, oh no, this is something private. This is not to be, done that way. The less I took martial arts seriously, the more I began to think, and at the same time, everybody else, it began to become something that was growing. I mean, here in America, all of a sudden, nobody knew where to find a karate dojo at 1961. Yeah. You couldn't find one. I found one in '63. They came from Japan, okay? And this is Los Angeles. But by '75, you had Korean places. Anyway, it spread. So I became less involved, but I saw everybody else becoming, and I said, this is going to be successful because of that. Boy, the script was, when I say I thought it was going to be a success, but it wasn't because it was more like a treatment. It was like about 45 pages, and everything that said, every so often it was just a blank, because what it said, fight scenes will be choreographed by Mr. Lee, That was a lot. That was the most consistent thing about it. I had a good time because I went to Hong Kong with my wife and my little son at the time. We shopped and ate a lot of great Chinese food, and I liked the relationship I developed with Bruce Lee, just a friendship. We talked a lot. We got along very well. I had done martial arts, but I hadn't trained much before that. So when we finally did some of the fight scenes in the end, it was like 8 days of that stuff. And boy, was I glad when it was all over, really.
Well, you mentioned your son. You're growing up, having your son watch horror movies with you and taking him to the movies. Was there any point that you had to explain to your son about what your dad did in terms of playing bad guys as well as good guys?
Let me tell you, my first experience of taking my son to the movie was Fantasia. Naturally, it's a good movie. Yeah. Can't remember exactly how old he was. We got home. He was very, very quiet. And then suddenly he said, why did those dinosaurs lose their shape? I said, what do you mean? He said, they lost their shape. He says, can't we do anything about that? Can we go to a doctor? And he started crying. He was so touched by seeing the dinosaurs as, they dissolved, right, because they were caught out and stranded, and they became skeletons. And he said they lost their shape. And he wept. And the experience was, was to me, because I remember it so well. But you see, by the time he was 5 or 6, I told you he was looking for horror film. Later on, when I remember passing up a movie that was a horror movie, I said, I'm not going to do it. Why, Pop? It's just a movie, he said to me. Yeah, so he evolved into, I don't know what you want to call it, our culture and sophistication or something, He didn't become an actor either.
Major criticisms of horror films, and even horror television to some extent, is that it's too graphic, it's too violent. Do you ever get the sense that something you've appeared in or starred in was too violent, and you had no idea when you went into it?
Absolutely.
That it was going to be that way?
You must have read my biography. I did a film one time with an Italian production, okay? And let me give you this is a funny story. 1980, I think it was. Got the script. It was called Apocalypse Tomorrow, the script. A translation from an Italian script into English. I read it, and I thought, this is pretty interesting. This is about this group of soldiers who go to Vietnam to rescue some American soldiers who are kept in detainment and who are in cages and are rabid. And that when we, the other American soldiers, try to rescue them, get bit. And when we come back to the United States, we become sort of rabid, okay? Well, I thought this was an interesting kind of political metaphor in a way. War, you get bit, you become the biter, and I thought this is interesting. So It was directed by a guy named Antonio Margheriti. So I met him, and we were shooting in Atlanta, not in Italy. So I went to him and I said, gee, it's pretty good. I like the script. He said, I don't. I said, you don't? Gee, I'm surprised. Why? I don't remember what he told me that particular day. A week, two later, we're into the production. I'm having a pretty good time. I liked working with Italians. I speak some Italian, and we kid it around. We make jokes. Cinematographers are good and fun and so on. And there was a scene where all of a sudden we're in some kind of a prison and somebody brings in a big, huge tray of meat. And the scene, as it was written in the script, described poorly. We all are this rabbit kind of thing, so we sort of dive into this meat. So I said, wait a minute. I said, what is this meat? Where does it come from? Why suddenly bring it? And I discovered what I never knew about the story. It was being made for Germany and Japan primarily at the time. This meat we were supposed to be eating a cadaver that would have been chopped up, including this, the Italian script said, but they deleted it from mine, so I didn't understand, including the genitals of somebody, you understand? So I told Antonio, I'm going to my hotel. And that's it. I wasn't in that scene. I thought, and furthermore, when I realized the I don't know what to call it, the grossness of the degree of it, I was depressed. I mean, talk about serious apocalypse. I thought, oh, God, I can't, shame, I was embarrassed, I felt awful. Couple, 3 years later, some people approached me about making a film in Korea when they were having the Olympics there, and they said, by the way, your film is a big success in Korea. I said, which film? Apocalypse, I think it was called Apocalypse, Cannibal Apocalypse. Yeah, I've never seen it. But, yeah. But, you know, who knows? Maybe if I saw it, I might. Could I like it? I don't know. But I never have seen it. Yeah, I think it can go too much in that way. Put it together. Polanski did things, you know, where he suggests the horror that is inside. You know, the graphic part of it is you know, you can. It's like being a gourmand. I mean, if you eat too much of something, you get sick. You know, just the right amount of something with that's got flavor and so on. It's enough. I think taste and meaning go together. I think, and they can be betrayed easily, too easily.
Join me here again on the wild side of the imagination, where a sense of wonder and a feeling of terror can often intersect. You'll find us waiting here, the Dark Dreamers.